Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow enthusiasts of theological conundrums, welcome into an OG episode, a throwback episode, if you will, a piece de resistance, another episode of Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. We are coming to you from the Mr. Lester's TSPL this week. We'll uncork the mysteries of weekly whiskeys, why you and me will never actually be equal. So let's actually consider this. We've been trying to advance the fallacy of equality for centuries. We've invented democracy, human rights, the internet, and yes, dubstep, though some days I'd argue the latter was an absolute mistake. Yet despite all the efforts, equality amongst men, human beings, remains as scarce as leftovers at a Clump family dinner. Hercules! I'm sorry, but I digress. The point, though, remains. We've tried to force equality of outcome on humans many times in the world. We've tried through laws. We've already documented that that didn't work. We've tried through political positions. Ask Catholics how the Holodomor worked out for them when communism promised that the working man would be equal and, they would redistribute wealth in the Soviet Union. We've tried to manufacture equality with test scores, college admissions, hiring practices, marriage certificates. The point is, you can try to legislate equality all you want. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how perfect your intent might be, you're gonna fail, just like Kanye West trying to pass a social sensitivity test. The simple fact is, we'll never be equal. Even Jesus recognized this. The God-man himself even realized that he wasn't equal to everyone or everything. St. Paul reminded us of this in his letter to the Philippians, that Jesus, though divine, chose humility. He didn't strut around saying, "Hey, I'm God, bow down to me." Instead, Jesus, though God in the form of a man, did not consider equality with God a thing to be grasped. So the obvious conclusion of that logical thought process is this. If Jesus knew that even he wasn't equal to God, and therefore not equal to other people, can we ever actually be equal to each other? And the answer is an emphatic no. The reality of the human experience is that we not only will never be equal to each other, maybe we really shouldn't even try. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be good to one another. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be charitable. But it does mean that we should recognize that equality of opportunity isn't the same as equality of outcome. While there are some things on this planet that we can control, the reality is there are so many variables that we can't control, and this is why you can't guarantee equal experiences or outcomes. I mean, equality just can't be chosen. Sure, you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your family. The point is, we are each put in a unique situation. We have a unique life, which means, by definition, every single one of us is unequal in some way. Now, that means different personalities, different bank accounts, different heights, different weights, different cars, different homes, different likes and dislikes. Isn't that the ultimate definition of inequality? And guess what? That's okay. The problem arises, though, when people try to say that we need to be equal. But what they really mean is they want an exception. See, when we set standards for anything, by definition, they should be static. But when certain people can't meet those standards, sometimes they cry out that it's not equal. Oh, but guess what? It actually is. Think about admission standards to a medical school, for example. It really should be the exact same standard for everyone, meaning everyone should meet the same test score requirements, same extracurricular activities requirements, GPA, essay submissions, things like that. The requirements, at a minimum, should be equal for every human being. Unfortunately, other criteria get brought into play sometimes. There have even been different criteria for different people. Things that shouldn't matter, but they do. They get thrown into the mix. In those cases, we're actually not getting equality of qualifications from the candidates. We're making exceptions in order to make things equal. That is as unequal as you can possibly get. And sure, there's always someone who can do more than us. There's always someone who can do less. There's always someone who has more than we do, or someone who will have less, whether it's stuff or faith or talent. There's only one person on the planet who has the most of everything. But instead of saying too good for them, our nature is to unfortunately let one of the 7 deadly sins rear its ugly head and complain, oh, that's not equal. So the desire to have equal stuff, equal status, equal power, instead of everyone being an equally good, humble, generous, holy person, just means that by trying to solve the issue, we're just making it worse. So where does this leave us? We're destined to remain unequal. Some of us forever chasing the elusive dream of equality. Some of us preaching equality just to keep us worried about everybody else's stuff instead of who and what we are. So our implicit bias is that equality is overrated. After all, it's our quirks, it's our differences, it's our delightful eccentricities that make us human. People, with our endless quest to equate ourselves to everyone, including God, well, they maybe just provide us with endless entertainment. In the end, maybe St. Paul was onto something. Perhaps true greatness lies not in equating ourselves to the divine or each other, but embracing our humanity with all our flaws, our foibles, and fantastic moments of stupidity. So let's raise a glass of weekly whiskey to our splendid inequality. And remember, if Jesus didn't equate himself to God, then we, by logical exposition, we will forever remain gloriously unequal. That's Implicit Bias Radio. It's weekly whiskey time on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We are in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. That's the TSPL for the initiated, located somewhere in downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. We've got a great crew for you here this week. As a matter of fact, it is one of the OG crews that we have from the show, because yes, when we started this show almost 5 years ago, we had an OG crew. The 5 people, there were 4 people in the room and one who was already a part of the crew but couldn't quite make it because he had to be out on his boat doing something special. We actually got him off the boat. We got Burley Pellerin, short pour, back in the TSPL this week. It's good to have you back, Burley. I'm surprised you're not on the boat.
It is fantastic to be back, and I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see you guys. It's been far, far too long.
It has, and I think we should get him theme music, Walker. I'm on a Boat by Lonely Island. Oh, wait, we can't air that on terrestrial radio. I'm flipping burgers, you at Kick Go Straight, flipping copy. Anyway.
I will tell you this, it's been few and far between that have been on the boat lately, so that is coming. The weather's getting right, and I will be back on the boat here in short order.
Burley, it's good to have you back. Sitting at the bar with Burley, he is Kennebra. He is K&B of William S. Nacall Jewelers. Grant Galatas. Grant, it's a pleasure to have you. And as I see, you're actually warming up as to how to appropriately approach the mic.
Yes, I've been instructed to swallow this thing, basically.
I'm not. Don't make joke. No joke. Joke.
Do with that what you will.
Jokety joke. No. Don't. Okay, Grant. It's
but
good
how
to
does
have
it
you back.
sound? Walker coming through over there?
You can talk into your microphone, Walker. You have a microphone for a reason.
Yes. Sometimes it messes up when I turn mine up and you can hear like a humming in my headset. So I try not to turn it all the way up.
Yeah. But I'm just glad that you actually figured out how to work your mic because you work everybody else's. And then, of course, there is the Rustic Renegade here in the TSPL. He is Caleb Morse of the Rustic Renegade. Caleb, I like the shirt. It's almost like the Airborne logo, which is actually kind of funny because I happen to wear my Army-Navy game special Airborne logo t-shirt for this show. So it was almost like we planned it, but we didn't.
And this is an old school retro. A buddy of mine wore his. This is a diplomatic security shirt. And a buddy of mine wore his a while back. And I was like, you know what? I don't wear that t-shirt too often. So I wanted to bust it out. Makes my chest look good.
It's a good looking t-shirt. Anyway, let's talk about our weekly whiskey that we have. We are on week 2 of offerings from Cajun's Cut. Last week, we had their 10-gallon barrel Nunu's Special. Nunu's, a store here in Lafayette, located in Maurice, located in Youngsville, located in Milton, located in Scott. They actually have these. Last week, it was a grain, which we knew that 10-gallon barrel was going to yield something a little different. Came in at what, 126 proof, almost 127.
I believe it was 126.7 or something like that.
I thought it was 126.8.
126.9.
9. Okay, so
And
we were
look,
close.
with that 10, with the 10-gallon barrel, you know, the surface area to internal fluid, the ratio is very skewed, right? So we noticed a lot of differences in flavor, a lot of changes, and today we're bumping it up to a 15-gallon.
Right. So you lose some of that surface area with the liquid. You don't age quite as quickly. You don't necessarily get that dog year aging that you get in the smaller barrels, but you do get probably a little more even aging as you think about the liquid that's been in there. Burley, you wanted to jump in.
Just curious. So the other one you tried, what was it, last week?
Yeah.
You said that one was what, 126?
126.9 on
Really?
proof. Yeah.
This one's pretty high proof too. I haven't seen the bottle yet, but this was what one. It's got to be, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, because we can't hear Grant. So say what it was. Go ahead. It's okay.
One.
It's 124.5.
124.5 on the proof. So
Okay.
not a slouch by any stretch of the imagination on the proof.
I was surprised when my first sip. Yeah, we'll talk about it in a minute.
All right. So I'm curious as to what you think. So, I mean, Burley, you got the mic. Might as well let short pour because you're going to start complaining about not having enough in a minute.
I'm certainly going to have more here in a bit. But
You are like our version of Wimpy from the cartoon Popeyes, who was always
just keep
eating a
feeding
hamburger.
burger. Just give me another burger, man. Give me another burger.
You can do that. Grant, you brought that up, right? You can do that whole Wimpy thing. How can you do that? Do you remember what it was?
Oh no, that was the story we were talking about where you could finance the meal delivery system.
Yeah, yeah. And what did Wimpy used to say?
Oh yeah, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Which is now apparently what you can do through DoorDash and Klarna, which was the finance company.
For a fee, of course.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
My thoughts on this. First, this was blind. I'm not very familiar with this, actually. I think I've seen it. I don't think I've had it. I was very surprised. It's a little hot, but it's sweet. It's a little on the sweet side. I'm not a big sweets, but I am all about the heat. I'm about the burn.
Okay.
And it's got a pretty good burn. It's got some unique flavors in here.
Little
though.
aggression to it.
It's a little aggression, but it's not unpleasant.
Okay.
It's really not unpleasant. I was really surprised when he was talking about the proof. I'm like, God, this has a little proof to it too.
Do you get any particular flavor notes off of this?
I haven't thought about that very much yet. I'm still just noticing the sweetness.
Okay. We're gonna give you
Not sure what that is yet. I've just been trying to have a drink. So at this point, y'all bear with me a little bit. I'll get one down and then have another pour here in a little bit.
We're gonna give you some water and whiskey so you can proof it just a little, because what we found with the 10-gallon barrel was that it made a ton of difference in
Really?
the flavor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we know how that works in here. So yeah.
We do.
I'll try that.
Okay. Let's go to your partner at the bar, your bar buddy over there. Grant, I'm curious as to what you think of this when you have really started to like higher proof offerings lately.
Yeah, it's actually been a little while since I've had one up in the 120s since I've been on the show, but we've been on a long streak since I was on of a lot of blues. This one, I agree with Burley. It hits you strong right off the bat at 124 like you'd expect. And I do look for that sweet. You don't want it overly sweet, but I do try and find my caramels and my vanillas. Not putting my finger on it, the taste seems to disappear kind of quickly on me, but it does. I almost did want to say that peppery, like a strong rye punch right off the bat, but it's got decent flavors. I mean, it just feels like it's striving to be something though. I'm not sure where I'm going to put this one when we grade it.
Okay.
Maybe I'll need another glass or two.
Oh, shocker.
Okay.
Yeah, so it tells you something right there if you're like, I might need another glass.
We need to
or two.
discuss it further, just me and the glass. Just a little.
It tells him to pour another one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so this to me fits the flavor profile of Cajun's Cut. I get a lot of similarities between the 15-gallon barrel and the 10-gallon barrel. And what jumps out at me is, number one, it is oily, it is viscous, which I like. So it coats the palate, it coats the tongue. You taste this all the way to the back of the throat. I get, again, on all of their stuff, I get heavy cola syrup. Much like if you were to open up, so for those who've ever dealt in a restaurant or anything like that, if there's a fountain unit in the restaurant, they have what's called bag-in-a-box. It's just bags of Coca-Cola syrup. It's not carbonated, and it's very, very sweet. I don't know that I get this over sweet, but I do get that syrupy, that cola flavor. I get pecan on this though. I get a little pecan, if not pecan, just I get something a little nutty on it. And that together, the only thing I can equate it to is if you've ever been around here and you've seen old Cajuns take an 8-ounce bottle of Coke, what do they put in it? Peanuts. They put peanuts in it. So I get Coca-Cola with peanuts in this. That's maybe really what I get on this. I don't get a whole bunch of punch on the alcohol. To me, this drink's very smooth for 124 proof. Most people at 124 would think it's straight gasoline. I think this is nice. It sits on the palate well, very, very drinkable. So Caleb, you are over there because I know there were lots of things that you wanted to make jokes about the way I described this.
I was struggling.
I know you were. I was doing everything I could to make it really hard on you.
You didn't make it hard on me. We'll clarify that. So on the nose, you ever had natural peanut butter?
Yes.
When it starts to separate a little bit and you get the natural oils on top?
Is that when it's over 72 degrees or under 72 degrees?
When it's sat in your grandmother's cupboard too long. I get like that peanut oil, but still peanutty on the nose, followed by fresh fig jelly.
I could see that.
That's what I get on the nose. Then on the palate, I get natural peanut butter, like real, not Jif and everything else, like they're natural peanut butter. So I get that hint of peanut. I get soda. I get chocolate cherries. And then I had a bitterness in the middle that I couldn't pinpoint. And then I started to put it together. And you ever had muscadine straight off the vine?
I have not.
So muscadines have a thicker skin, right? Yep. And that skin has got like a leathery, but like a dirty kind of taste to it. Yep. That's the flavor in the middle of my palate is a fresh muscadine skin. So it's really complex. To be honest with you, this is, out of all the Cajun cuts we've tried, this has been my favorite so far. This one at the 15-gallon, in my opinion, is a big step up. The flavor profile, it's still there. It's more refined. It's more complex, but more forgiving. And I think at 124.4, this is good.
I'm curious. The one you had before, this is the cask strength.
The other one's a cask strength as well.
It was a cask strength as well.
Yeah, because it was 126.9.
Just a smaller
barrel in which it was aged. Now, one of the things that I really like about
what's the age?
I don't know that there's an age statement.
Yeah, there's not an age statement.
They didn't say either one. Okay.
But here's what I really like about Cajun Cut stuff. These glasses, and we talked about this last week, but again, it happens this week. So now you've got consistency. You can actually see, because these glasses are pristine. Yeah. If you're watching on our socials, which YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, please follow us there. It helps the show. It helps promote your implicit bias. But when you look at the film that the volatile organic compounds that are suspended in the alcohol actually leave in the glass, it's a heavy, heavy amount. This is not devoid of flavor by any stretch of the imagination. It is an incredibly flavorful Louisiana bourbon whiskey, which is unique. All right, Caleb, you got something over there. You found something.
Yep. Aged at least 3 years. So now that's aged in 15-gallon barrels as well. So 3 years in a 15-gallon barrel, that's a lot of dog years.
You can almost equate that to, so let's say it's a 15-gallon barrel, call that a third.
Yeah.
So you could almost multiply the age times 3. So if it's 3, it's almost the equivalent. And it's a false equivalency, we know, but you can start to maybe think about it from the realm. Maybe that's like an 8 or a 9 year. Just because of the amount of surface area that you get in that smaller barrel versus the larger barrel.
It's got a great color. I'll take that, Caleb.
You should hold it up to the light.
Short pour didn't have enough, apparently.
Hold it up to the light and look at the red.
I didn't pour myself the first one.
No, I gave him a short pour.
He did. He did. But it's got a great color.
It's not the first time you've given someone something that's short, Caleb. So
hey, look, consistency is key.
Hey, when Caleb was pouring it, you could see how thick it was. I almost wanted to slide a pancake underneath this thing the way it was pouring out of the bottle.
You know, that's actually not a bad thought. Ooh. If you were to take this and put this on a pancake, you don't need a ton of maple syrup with it.
I do get maple in here.
Yeah.
But when you said the cola,
Yeah.
What
The flavor note, the cola.
Yeah, but what did you call the stuff
Syrup?
in the bag? The syrup. I'm sorry. Well, I'm talking about maple, and I can't.
Yeah.
But I do get maple. But yeah, definitely the cola syrup. But I do pick up some maple right there. That's the sweetness I'm picking up. I don't like to go because once I say something funny, then it sticks in my mouth, and then I can't get rid of it. We've had that happen, so I don't want. So Caleb, quit with the descriptives because you're going to ruin me on this one. Because I'm going to buy some of this stuff, but if it sticks with me, I'm going to. Now I can't get rid of it.
What I think is really actually cool is that for those who don't know, Caleb and I do not discuss what flavor notes we get, and we do that on purpose. We purposefully do not talk about this is what I get before we actually start putting this down on video for posterity. So we can see if we're close in what we both get off of this. The fact that I started at pecan and then went to, almost peanuts and peanut and Coca-Cola, that it tells you that those flavors are that strong. That even if you think, well, my palate's not that great, you're going to get it.
I mean, it's two different palates, right? And then we're both picking up on the same cues with this. So, I mean, it tells you the kind of flavor profile that you get and the consistency that they have bottle to bottle.
This is the beauty of whiskey right here. And I'll tell you why. We're drinking it neat. Like most of our listeners know that we drink it neat to start off with. And I still haven't put in a drop of water, by the way. But this is a whiskey that would, because it's got such unique flavors, but it is a high proof, but it's so easy drinking. You could do this in so many different scenarios. I don't know if I'd mix this with anything. Again, I think Caleb, you do an occasional old fashioned and whatnot.
Yeah, and
I don't. I don't think this. I think whatever you're putting in your old fashioned is kind of duplicated in some of the flavors you get in here. So I think this is probably much more enjoyable by itself, just like we're having it now, because once the air gets into it, once I put a drop of water in here, I think it'll open it up even more, and you get to experience the bottle in a glass.
And look, last bottle we had, so last week, I think a hint of lime juice in these Cajun Cut would be phenomenal. Like a Cuba Libre, because it's got that cola flavor to
rum,
it.
got that
Yep,
rummy,
rum
that rummy
hint
sugar.
to it.
Yep.
I think that with a little lime in here, and man, my shoulders will start moving.
I think it's really, really interesting because last week, Caleb, you said you got maraschino cherry or you got cherry syrup.
Yep.
Almost like the Marasca sauce that's in a Luxardo cherry.
Correct.
You taste that. So, Burley, when you said, I don't know that I want to put this in an old fashioned, if you put, and this, Caleb, is where I think the money is, if you put an orange peel in this and rimmed a glass with the orange peel by itself,
ding.
This would be off the charts because that bright citrus, but the deeper flavor of the orange as opposed to the lime.
You certainly don't need the simple syrup.
No.
You don't need
No,
that.
yeah.
No,
No.
I agree. I agree. The citrus from an orange peel, even just the zest, the little mist.
All right. So we've all had a great tasting of this Cajun's Cut 15-gallon barrel Nunu's Pick cask strength Louisiana straight bourbon whiskey. We are going to rate this on the Morse Whiskey Rating Code scale, which is red, I wouldn't drink it even if it was free. Yellow, I would only drink it if it was free. Green, I would buy this. Blue, I would seek this out. And we're going to play What Would You Pay, which, Burley, we know, but it's okay. Grant, hold up the What Would You Pay championship belt chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette. Whoever's closest to the number, you get to wear the chain for the rest of the show. So, Burley, we're going to start with you since you are affectionately known as maybe a guest to the TSPL as of late.
I am.
Where do you rate it and what would you pay?
Rate it. I definitely agree.
Okay.
I'm going to put this on my bar. I'm going to put this on my bar, no doubt.
And what would you pay?
$57.
$57. Grant?
I'm going to give it a green as well. Good flavor profile. 75 maybe?
75. Cask strength, single barrel, 15 gallons, not a lot of bottles. I
At
get
least
it.
3 years.
Yeah.
So we know it's above 30.
All right.
You did the math.
Caleb,
This is getting a green from me. This is getting a green from me. And I think that I have an unfair advantage because I know what the last one was. So I'm going to go 76.
Let me ask you this real quick. Again, I missed the last one. So did you give the last one a green?
The last one was a split green.
Yep, it was a split.
It was a split green.
Green,
Green,
split,
yellow. Green, yellow. Split. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
This one, I'm going to tell you, this is almost a blue because of how unique it is and how few bottles are going to come out of a 15-gallon barrel. As far as drinkability, if I were to, I would buy this. This to me is a green. It doesn't quite fit those really exceptional criteria quite yet, but it's really close. So it's a unanimous green, which means that it is worth every bit of the $59.95 that you would pay for this one, which means the what would you pay championship belt chain goes to Short Pour. He was at 57. You were at 75.
He was at 75. I was at 76. Really?
No, he said 57.
This one's
57.
Yeah,
He said
57.
57.
This is 59?
This is $59.99.
The one last week.
It was a 10-gallon
10
barrel,
gallon.
which means there's even fewer bottles.
I did bad math.
Nah, you went the other way.
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
I did.
How much was it last week?
It's $69.99. Yep.
Yep.
So an absolute green, $59.99. Burley Pellerin Short Pour wins the what would you pay championship belt chain. We're going to solve the problems of the world. If everybody were equal, we'd all get a belt chain, but we're not. And we're going to talk more about that on this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. Implicit Bias Radio back on the air. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We've got a absolutely great crew here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL. That's the top secret podcast lair for the uninitiated. At the bar, Short Pour Pellerin looking at his glass like he doesn't know what it's supposed to do with it. Grant Galatas, one of the OG members, as is Burley. Grant, otherwise known as K&B because he's from Kennebra. Also with William S. Nacall Jewelers, which means that if you are looking for, as we get ready, because, I know we're getting close to Mother's Day, but if you need something for Mother's Day, you can go there. What, Grant? You're going to say something?
Be sure to take care of your mother.
Yes.
Said that, look, that New Orleans twang. You heard that? Take care of your mother.
That's not New Orleans twang. That's the Kennebra. That's where that comes from. We know this. But right after Mother's Day is what? Father's Day. So if dad might want to have his own version of the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle, deep blue, which you see on the bar, that beautiful lead-free Waterford Crystal decanter, you can get it at William S. Nacall's right here in Lafayette.
Yeah, it's dad's a tough sell in a jewelry store. Come get your dad a watch or maybe a chain here lately. But this bottle to put on his whiskey bar, just filled with blues, you can't miss.
No, you absolutely cannot. Speaking of can't miss, he is the Rustic Renegade. He is a good shot, apparently.
A little bit.
That's what we hear. Caleb, great to have you here with us. The story that I want to dive into when we start thinking about equality of standards, I stick by the theory that if we really look at it, we'll never absolutely be equal to each other. And it's okay. When you start to see manufactured equality, that's when you know something might be amiss. Too many things are equal between circumstances when maybe they shouldn't be. Which brings us to the first story that I have to maybe bring out here in the TSPL. And it's this. In the last week or so, I saw the headline come across. Grant sent this to me and said, hey, why not this story? And I said, this one's probably a winner. A teen in Wisconsin was arrested for murdering his parents.
In the first degree.
Correct. Kept the bodies in the house for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to go where that would lead in a minute. But the reason why he allegedly murdered them is bizarre. He allegedly murdered his parents so he could fund a plot to assassinate the sitting president of the United States.
And possibly the vice president.
In order to save the white race.
Yeah, his manifesto was in order to further inflict chaos, he felt that assassinating the president and potentially the vice president would throw us in civil unrest and allow a whole lot of infighting and what he would consider the lesser races, I guess. They worded it a certain way, I don't remember what it is, to sort themselves out. So this is pretty extreme.
Well, the funny part is, when I initially saw the story, somebody had the story linked and wrote, "I wonder how right-wingers are going to spin this." And I'm like, this guy's not a right-winger.
Yeah, not at all.
This guy is not even close to a right-winger. This guy is trying to assassinate a sitting president, and nobody on the right, I don't think, has ever advocated for that.
No, and he's pushing for assassinating a president, civil unrest, and the anarchy, spreading anarchy, because that's what he wants. And it was neo-Nazi groups that he was connected to. Now, he shot and killed both his father and his mother. I didn't find what kind of firearm he used. This was a handgun. Shot and killed both of them. Hid the bodies for about 2 weeks
In the house.
In the house.
Okay, anybody know how decay works? Trust me, if you've ever smelled it, if you've ever smelled death, you know.
Well, then you have rigor mortis setting in. You have the gases, so the human body swells. It starts to expand, and then certain things get closed. Whenever you decompose and you die, there's no longer any muscle control, right? So eventually all of that just overpressures the valves, works its way out, and it's a horrible smell, and things get emptied. I don't know where he hid the bodies. He actually left them there and fled to go to, I don't remember where it was.
Grant, do you remember? Because you were all over this story. You remember where he fled to?
No, I don't remember where he fled to. I know he had plans to go to Ukraine.
Oh.
That's where the initial plan was. They said he was in communication with someone who speaks Russian, and he was talking about his exit strategy was to go to Ukraine after the, and under the impression they were going to get him out safely.
Whoa. Now, hold on. Now we're talking about equality of circumstances. And you're like, what are you talking about? Well, there was also a story that came out that one of the other assassins, at least one of the other attempted assassins of the same, at the time, presidential candidate.
This is the attempted assassination outside the golf
On the golf course,
Yep.
yes.
That was Ruth.
Apparently, thank you, had also been in communication with Ukraine?
officials.
because he was trying to buy a rocket launcher or a surface-to-air missile to shoot down either a helicopter or a plane. So you're telling me that we now have two planned assassins, one actually attempted, allegedly, to kill a presidential candidate. The other one killed his parents so he could one day, allegedly, right? And this kid, by the way, whose name just happens to be Nikita. I wonder what the origins of that name are.
And look, he made off with 14 grand in cash, stole the identities of his deceased parents, had their credit cards, and was going to try to liquidate those as well to get as much cash as he could. So he had things set in place, and he had a basic understanding of what he was trying to do as well. This could have gone pretty far.
Now, he has allegedly, so everybody knows, he has allegedly killed his parents. That is what he is charged with. Yeah. He has not been convicted of a crime. We've got to make that distinction because of lawyers. But to be fair, that is true. He has been accused of it. He has not been convicted. I mean, they have his text messages back and forth to his contact, allegedly in Ukraine. The coincidences here are starting to add up way too much. Burley?
Well, it said that his manifesto detailed plans on how and where he would live in Ukraine. They caught him in Kansas, is what the story says.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
They found him in Kansas, but his plan was to eventually reside in Ukraine.
But again, you start looking at all of these things. These number one, so you had one attempted assassin who is no longer with us on a presidential candidate, young, teenage, white male. Then you had another white male who had contact with Ukraine. Then you have another young, teenage, white, male contact with Ukraine. I mean, it's almost like they said, okay, we're going to start with this, and then we're going to add one more element to it. And then we're going to start with these elements from the second one and add one more element to that. And then we're going to start, and they all seem to line up in a lot of ways. Grant?
Yeah, that's where I wanted you to go with this. Online in chat rooms, you can, I mean, there's such a huge population of these young disenfranchised kids that are just looking for meaning in their lives. They feel lost, they feel alienated, they feel alone. And you start chatting with them, you can convince these kids to pretty much do anything. But this kid had purchased explosives and drones, which is just frightening, absolutely frightening to me, because that is the most, I mean, instead of having crooks on a building trying to shoot from 150 yards, thank goodness he failed. But you put some explosives on a drone, and your attempt becomes a lot easier, especially with the kids, the way they play the video games. Have you seen like the drone racing league? Where
Yes.
these guys are flying these things at 70 miles an hour through a building?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I wanted you to go with this. That look, there's so many kids out there that you could actually recruit to do stuff like this. But look, another rabbit hole. What was old Charlie Manson's MO? Civil unrest. He wanted to do something extremely.
I didn't put that link together.
Oh
but
no,
yes.
that was one of the first things I thought about. Was look, there's a cover story. There's a plot beneath. It's hard to unwind. We still haven't heard anything about Crooks. No manifesto. No nothing about this kid.
Well, let's be honest with Crooks. It's what we haven't heard that tells me somebody inside started with this. Why? Because when they went to look at his house had been cleaned and professionally cleaned.
Thoroughly,
Like
yeah,
Winston
correct.
Wolfe had shown up and cleaned out the house to make sure that there would be no evidence. There was some evidence of him having contact with people working in the government. He had bank accounts
Multiple offshore bank accounts.
that were offshore for like a
Ruth?
17-year-old kid.
Ruth had offshore bank accounts as well. I'm sure we'll find out something about this. I say I'm sure. We probably might. Probably will. So eventually these breadcrumbs are all going to lead to the same path.
Speaking of breadcrumbs leading to the same path and online in chat rooms, and this literally just jumped into my head when you said it, Grant.
Roblox.
Anybody know what else happened this week with regards to online and chat rooms? 4chan, which was allegedly unhackable, got hacked. The anonymous online chat rooms got hacked. And guess what? Governments were operating there. We're going to tell you not all governments are equal, and there's one that gets away with seemingly a lot more. Go research which government was maybe posting on 4chan the most. We'll be back. Wrap up hour one of this week's episode of Implicit Bias Radio. Final segment, hour one, Implicit Bias Radio. If your radio station doesn't get hour two or broadcast hour two of Implicit Bias Radio and you want to hear it, give them a call. Tell them, hey, we want our Implicit Bias Radio, or make it easy. Go find us on our socials, which are X, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Go find us wherever you get podcasts. If you missed any part of the show, you can get the show sent to you early every single week. It's your Implicit Bias Radio. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Okay, so, you know, I say we're not all equal, but again, it seems like some politicians want to prove me wrong. By the time this episode airs, this story will be a week and a half-ish old. But it's okay, because this story is just too juicy. And by juicy, I mean like how you would see juicy on the back of shorts. You could probably write juice. You could probably, on this one, you could probably write juiciferous all the way across it.
Like, that's still a thing?
I don't know if it's still a thing or not. But I mean,
Walker, you got a pair of those?
this story,
Yeah, I wear them to bed every night. They're really comfortable.
I've seen that.
okay. So what makes this story so juicy is this. The sitting president of the United States, while he was a candidate for president, was prosecuted criminally for misvaluing property. Now, here's the real fun part. He was prosecuted in New York for misvaluing a Florida property for a business loan that went all over the country. In other words, it was a federal charge that the federal prosecutor said, yeah, there's nothing here. We're not prosecuting this. That the state of New York said, nope, it's fraud. and we are going to prosecute it. That's what they said in synopsis. Well, now it appears that the Department of Justice has got old Letitia James in a little bit of a bind.
I read on it.
You read on it a little bit?
Yep.
Letitia Juicy James might have a problem. And I don't mean like a problem, because that's got to be in it. I mean like a problem. 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 And here's why. Because no matter what they find in this investigation, the criminal referral has been given to the DOJ from lawmakers. No matter what they find, she in trouble. Does anybody know why?
And now hers is in the state of New York for an apartment complex that was in actuality, it was a 5-unit apartment complex that she did as a 4-unit. Because at a 4-unit, you get a better interest rate in the state of New York.
That's not even where I'm going with this story.
Really?
Not even close.
Are you talking about her falsifying the application and whatnot?
Ooh, okay.
And what she put on it?
So follow me here. If I want to be the governor of the state of Louisiana, there's a little bit of common sense of where I probably need to live.
Yeah.
Where do I probably need to live?
Within the state.
Within the state of Louisiana. Take a guess where Letitia James filed as her primary residence before she became the sitting attorney general and ran for attorney general of the state of New York. You know, you might not be that far off, Caleb. You might not be that far off, but it's not Epstein Island. Grant, you want to fill us in on this one? Because I know you know.
No.
You know, Grant, you know what? I know that you know, that I know, that you know.
No, I don't know where she filed. Honestly, I didn't get to read this one, so I'm not sure where she filed from.
The state of New Jersey.
Oh, isn't that like New York's sworn enemy?
It's not their sworn enemy.
Yeah, but they
You've got-
argue back and forth with one another.
It's like the suburbs, right?
Yeah, they argue.
It's the suburbs of New York, but it's not the state of New York.
Yeah, accuse someone from Jersey from being New York, and they get all up in your face and loud.
Please don't ever do that again.
I was
Please?
going to say that.
That's my Jersey Shore thing.
Can we not do that again?
For the love of God, dear sweet baby Jesus.
You sounded more like that brunette
I put on
Chandler Bing's girlfriend on on Friends. What's her name with the nose?
Janice.
I was trying to do
Chandler.
what's the situation from Jersey Shore? I don't know. That's the only one I remember.
So wait, so Jersey is what Kenner is to New Orleans, correct?
Except
Everybody in New York.
No,
Yeah.
no. Think of it this way: Bay St. Louis is to New Jersey, or Bay St. Louis is to New Orleans.
Yeah.
What New Jersey is
Okay.
to New York. In other words, it's within 60 miles. It's within 40 miles. I mean, you could potentially
York,
live
that's
in
3
New
days
Orleans
travel.
East and be. It is, but you could live in New Orleans East and be 40 minutes or 30 minutes from living in Bay St. Louis, in Mississippi. But you're not living in Louisiana. You're not living in New Orleans.
Right.
In other words, take a guess what it's illegal to do. Take a guess what you can't be in New York if you don't live in New York.
You can't hold public office.
Can't be the attorney general.
You can't be the attorney general.
But it goes beyond that, though. Did you see the rest of it that's coming out with this?
Keep going. You go.
So she falsified records to meet lending requirements, up to and including listing her father as her husband.
Ring the bell.
Wait,
ring
what?
the bell. Yep.
You say this
Yep.
again?
Yeah. She falsified records to meet lending requirements, up to and including listing her father as her
Husband.
husband.
Yes. That is the accusation. Regardless
Which is mortgage fraud is what it comes down to. That's where
Correct.
that's where that particular
Yeah.
part of the case is going.
So she's either committed fraud to live at that place and get the financing for it.
Or incest.
That's possible. I mean, look, I hate to say it, but I mean, it's dumber things have happened. Ilhan Omar. Sorry. Oh, no, that wasn't her father. That was her brother. Anyway,
Thanks for
Or-
clarifying.
or she can't be, so she either lives in New Jersey and she can't be the attorney general,
Yep.
or she's the attorney general and she's committed fraud. It's one of the two here. That's the allegation. Grant?
Are these people so focused on getting Trump that they don't realize that all of this will come to light. Because the same thing with Fani Willis. She hired her boyfriend to be the special prosecutor. And I don't know if you remember, but Letitia James, when she was running for attorney general,
She said, I'm going to get Trump.
that was the whole basis of her campaign. If you put me in office, I will get Trump. She had no idea that he would actually win. There would be a huge mandate. And then all of a sudden, the crosshairs turn around on her. Are they so focused on getting Trump that they don't realize what they're doing?
I believe it's different, and it's this, and we're going to have to wrap this up as we go. It's not that she ran and said, if I run, I'm going to get Trump, and they're so focused on Trump to get him. It's they want to get him so he couldn't win, because they knew that if they didn't put him in jail, we'd end up here. We will come back with hour 2. Burley, hour 2 is always what?
Better than hour 1.
More fun than
And
hour
certainly
1
more fun.
on Implicit Bias Radio. Stick around. We've got a lot more coming your way. It's always cheaper when it's made in China, or maybe it is. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter, because Implicit Bias Radio is made right here in the great old United States of America, in the state of Louisiana, in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair located somewhere in downtown Lafayette. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, sitting in the chair opposite mine. He is the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse, at the bar as Short Pour is over there making sure he's got multiple pours. And Grant Galata's trying to take a bottle with him, which doesn't surprise me. Those are our guests for the week. We have got a great show so far. If you missed any of it, go find us wherever you get podcasts. Find Implicit Bias Radio. Subscribe, like, follow on our socials, whether it's X, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook. Call us ugly names. We laugh at you, and we're just fine with it, because it's your Implicit Bias Radio.
You need to tell the people the truth, though. Like, if you're driving right now on your radio and you look, it's a little button that has arrows pointing to the left. We pay extra. If you push that right now, it'll rewind.
That's really smart, Caleb. Tell them to change the channel while we're
They're going to hit it, then they'll come back and they're like, he got me.
killing me, Morse. You're
He
killing
got
me.
me.
All right. So I use the reference, it's always cheaper when it's made in China. You know, we talk about people being equal and that it'll never happen. But you can set up circumstances where at least actions are equal. And our current administration has been seeking an equal trade deal with multiple countries over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. And some people have just absolutely lost their ever-loving minds over it. The reality is, we operated on tariffs in the United States. Please don't believe us. Go look this up until, oh dear Lord, what, 1912, 1913? I mean, it was a very long time that the US government was entirely funded without income tax on tariffs.
Oh, it sounds so amazing.
It sounds
Imagine
wonderful.
keeping the money that you work for.
So as you can imagine, China is not happy about this. Why? Because they've been tariffing things from the US forever. Forever. A big old sandlot forever. And if you don't know that, you might want to look it up. Please don't believe us. Why is that important? Because when we start putting tariffs on their goods, well, you know what that does? It makes them awfully mad. And people say tariffs are going to be a losing proposition for the US. I am not an economist. I don't know. Caleb, are you an economist?
No, I really don't want to be.
Grant, you an economist?
After one more glass, I will be.
Okay, perfect. That works. Burley?
I'm not, but I did sleep in a Holiday Inn Express last night.
So, here's what I will tell you, though. I can predict the future about as well as those economists can. And here's what I know. Supply and demand is a real interesting thing. We talked last week about all the shipping containers that are starting to back up because of tariffs and a reduction in the consumption of imported goods. And now what you are seeing is really, really telling. They say in poker, you never play your hand, you play the person across from you. And right now, the person across from us in this international game of poker called tariffs is absolutely giving tells left and right. The biggest tell is on social media, where all of a sudden you are seeing videos from China from all of their manufacturers. And what are they doing? they are exposing just how cheap it is for them to manufacture the goods and products that we are consuming in the United States. Now, I've said forever, for a couple of decades, that if we as the American public actually knew the exact cost to make the products that we consume, there should be riots in the streets, and there would be. And you ask why. So a long time ago, the wife and I owned a business. And that business sold sunglasses. Sold them for $12 to $10 a pair. We paid the distributor in New York for a $12 to $10 pair of sunglasses, depending upon how many you bought. We paid the distributor a maximum of $2 a pair. For some of them, we paid $1.65, $1.75. But the most we paid per pair was $2. Which means the distributor was making money on every single pair. And the manufacturer was making money, which means that those sunglasses were somewhere in the ballpark of probably 50 cents a pair to make. Markup on top of markup on top of markup. And I'd love to say we got rich selling sunglasses at that much of a markup, but the reality is we didn't, because the rent was so high. It was one of those things where when the economy crashed in 2008, it took everything we had with it. But the point being, it cost next to nothing. They are paying slave wages in China, and they can get away with it. So not only is there an economic issue here, number one. Number two, there's a moral issue. So if you are complaining about not making $75 an hour working at McDonald's, I don't want to hear you complain about paying a little bit more to get products from the United States, because you buying products from China and buying that cheap labor, you're doing to them exactly what you don't want done to you. That's number one. Number two, and this is the big one. I had a conversation with somebody who works in import right now. And I asked them what they were going to do, because they bring in a lot of their stuff from Italy. And I was wondering, how would it affect their product? Wine, different spirits, even down to Prosecco. And the answer I got was, well, the last time this happened, because it happened in 2016, 2017, 2018, we just ate the 10 to 15%. So our prices didn't go up. Is anyone understanding the math here?
Absolutely, because they were able to very easily swallow the 10 to 15% because of what they were paying.
Which means not only because of what they were paying, but because of what we have been paying.
Yeah, because their margin is high enough to absorb that.
Ring the bell. The margin means they have been making so much money off the American consumer that 10 to 15%, they might feel it a little bit, but it's really not that big a deal, because they understand the market can't bear any more price. In other words, they are taking as much money out of your pocket already as they can, and they know it.
Well, when you look at clothing and all the other stuff that like in my industry, right? We're not selling firearms made in China. But clothing and that kind of stuff, a lot of places, I sell my logo clothing, that kind of thing. I don't sell all these other brands that are made in the Philippines, made in Thailand, made in China. And all these companies that do, they're making 40, 50% margin. That's what they're used to. All these big clothing companies, 40,
they're making more than that.
Well, the resellers, 40, 50% margin. The manufacturer is making 80%. So an 80% margin is paying $2 and selling it for 10.
Yep.
Right? So when you look at some of these numbers, that's why we have these places that can exist, and they sell like 10 parcels of clothing a month and pay their $10,000 a month rent. I made that number up. But that's how they can sell so little and cover so much, is because the vast majority of it is margin. And look, every person out there listening to this, the wage you get paid is not necessarily what you're worth. It's what your employer can afford to pay you.
Yep.
Right? And I'm sure Well, I mean, I'm not sure, but employers like me would love to pay our employees more. We can't do that if we don't charge more. If you're working for the kind of place that can charge that kind of stuff, I hope you're making a phenomenal salary. I hope they take care of you. But the sad truth is a lot of the places that make this kind of margin, the workers aren't making that kind of salary.
Not even close.
The brass is making that salary.
The importer story you're talking about. What actually likely happened there was that once this seemingly obvious trade war, let's say, happened, prices were expected to go up. They knew that they would have repercussions jacking up your prices.
Yep.
So they said, no, we'll eat it. The consumer then realized, hey, wait, we were expecting prices to go up. They didn't. Let's buy more.
So they decided they chased volume instead of chasing margin, which means that in that scenario, when you get that tariff, the American consumer gets more.
And that's where we are. That's where we're going to be once this all settles down. That's what's going to happen.
Well, if you look at this right now, the telltale sign for me is that the Chinese propaganda machine is absolutely rolling on this because they are panicking, because they know that the knockoff bags they make, that they are paying $150, $200, $300 to make and selling for $1,000 instead of the luxury manufacturers paying $1,400 and charging $38,000.
But wait, aren't we looking at stories now that are coming out that are saying, wait a minute.
Well, that's where it goes
these bags.
Are they really knockoffs?
Are they really knockoffs, or are they being contracted to be made somewhere else and still being presented as original?
Okay,
and so I would call them unfinished goods, right? Because they haven't gone and gotten the letters
the letters or the final pattern or the final stitching or the overlay.
Yep.
Or the logo.
But the work has been done. And where was the work done?
Here's a really interesting dovetail to that story. It's this. Do you know that if you buy a watch that says Swift's Movement, the majority of the work can be done in Japan?
Yep.
As long as the last mile is done in Switzerland, it gets labeled as Swiss Movement. We have a little movement here on the show, and I don't mean that kind of movement because Walker's telling me 1 minute. We're trying to keep things equal in the segments, but it'll never happen. Stick around. We've got more Implicit Bias Radio, Hour 2, coming your way. Implicit Bias rolls on. I am your host, Kevon Bordelon, here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair, where I got to tell you, if you are looking for pours of whiskey, go to Mr. Lester's. See the two ugly guys at the bar if you're watching on socials? Yeah, Grant, I'm referencing you. I'm kidding. The bottles in front of them that look so beautiful, those are, except for the deep blue infinity bottle that's in front of Grant, all of those bottles, man, you go to Mr. Lester's, you're going to find stuff like that behind the bar, and you're going to find it at reasonable prices. They do outstanding work with whiskey because they want Acadiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, Southern Louisiana whiskey drinkers to be able to sample the good stuff. And we're not just talking about whiskey. We're talking about the best steaks at the only 5-star restaurant between New Orleans and Houston. And if you don't believe us, I'm going to give a plug here. Go to the Facebook group Foodies of Lafayette and see what they had to say about it.
They lost their mind.
Well, welcome to the show, guys. You're the Foodies of Lafayette, and you're only 2 years behind us. It's all right.
Enjoy our table scraps.
Real quick, I thought about this just a second ago. So if you offer bigger, better diamonds for less, are they offering better whiskey for less?
Bigger, better
they
beef.
absolutely are.
They're
offering
you
better beef.
You wouldn't believe some of these flights and promotions that they're doing. Correct?
And
right?
some of the stuff they've got.
It's too low that we can't even advertise it here.
Correct. Some of the bottles that you might see there, so you might see, for example, a Remus Gatsby back there. Unobtainium of unobtainium. There's some bottles that they've got just one of and they're able to put back there, but they're going to have bottles like that Foregate, like that Jack Daniel's Sinatra. By the way, if you are watching, we are in the process of giving away 2 of the Foregates that are on the bar on our socials, so you might want to go to our social media and register to win. All right, guys, let's get back to it because man, we can't keep things equal here because China apparently is just that. We were talking about it during the break, and it's going to roll over. In the first segment of this hour, we were discussing just all the craziness around how China is losing their mind over the United States basically setting in place reciprocal tariffs. Now, as of this recording, we finally decided to play Rochambeau with them because they said, oh, we're going to put a tariff of 125%. And we said, fine, 246%, go there. And they've kind of balked. They've kind of been like, oh, well, we don't necessarily want to play this game anymore because you're willing to put more chips into the table than we are, which tells you a lot. It tells you a lot about the hand they're holding. If they had a royal straight flush, they'd put all their chips into the middle.
Well, and I love how you said reciprocal tariffs, right? Because we were just going to match what they were putting.
And they got upset.
They were like, no. What's good for the emperor is not good for the president.
And I love, we're going to go to Burley in a second. I love that one of their state ministers went on social media and said, and called Americans peasants.
Yep.
Tells you what they think about us. Please don't believe us on this, Burley.
What one of the other things though is that when we United States talk about China, I think collectively we see one person, right? We see him as China.
No, yeah. I see a 1.7 billion people.
No. But they're not driving.
Correct. Well, okay. I see the Chinese Communist Party driving this.
Driving the boat.
It's a 50-year plan, the 100-year plan they've been working on.
I think part of the shift is that you're going to see those Chinese businessmen start kicking in and saying, hey, whoa, hang on. Whoa, pause, time out. Now you're getting into our money. I understand what you're trying to do, but it's at the detriment of us all. And now I think the dialogue is going to start to change because of that.
Ring the bell. Go to Caleb and I'll tell you my thoughts on that in a second.
Well, I'm thinking heavily about it because if they care enough about their money, which I would believe they do, because in these kind of industries and these kind of people, when they can garner that much wealth, they want to have more wealth, right? So if they're willing to stand up to their government and say, let's let alibis be alibis and we'll let this sleeping dog lie, that could be a big move.
So we are going the same path, and I'm just going to extrapolate that and maybe make it a little more relative to how we as Americans think. Business lessons I learned from the mob. You go to work for the mob, they expect you to do what?
Perform.
They expect you to make money.
Make money, yeah.
Right? And the people who are making money expect the bosses to do what? The bosses are going to skim off the top. They know it.
Yeah.
Because you've got to kick it up.
You got to kick it up.
But what do they expect the bosses to do? They expect the bosses to protect. They expect the bosses to have the network at the top to make sure that everybody's taken care of, to keep you out of whether it's physical jail, whether it's political jail, whether it is, rep jail, whatever it is, they expect the bosses to take care of that. What happens when the bosses don't?
Mutiny.
The bosses get whacked. That's when you see Big Paul Castellano getting shot in front of Sparks Steakhouse in New York City. That's when you see them coming after Don Corleone, fictional, I know, but that's when you see these mob bosses get whacked by their underlings because they're no longer taking care of business.
And these aren't necessarily the underlings, quote unquote, of the mob.
No, these are the captains,
but
essentially.
Well,
and if you think the Communist Party doesn't work in China like the mob works here in the U.S.,
it may, but then even beyond that, the next level down.
You're talking about that physical worker.
I'm talking about the people who are running and owning and operating those companies. There are so many of them, and they have not yet been heard. But I think right now, in some of the things that we've seen today, I think that's where the dialogue is going to start changing, and somebody's ears are going to perk up, and it's probably going to be his at the top going, whoa, okay, hang on. Yep.
As my good buddy Christian Boss said, and he listens to the show religiously, old college roommate, and he sent me this. He said, I think China blinked. And he's an economics guy. He's a finance guy. And I said, what do you mean they blinked? And he goes, you've got to read the comment. China came back and said, we're going to match this tariff at this, but we are not interested in going any further if the U.S. does anything. In other words, we're going to do this to save face.
Yep.
Because culturally, we've put them in a really bad spot. We've made them look bad on the global stage, and they can't have that. But economically, I think they realize they can't continue to play this game ad infinitum. Grant?
Our economists have said that. They've said that they need us more than we need them. So right now, it's a Mexican standoff. Is that racist? Can I say that?
It's a Mexican standoff.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. But no, our economists have said that in this game they will blink first because they need us more than we need them.
Well, you look at
now.
the
Now look,
amount of
this is two different dictatorships. Because if you remember, Putin was up for re-election last year, and his political opponent just kind of is sleeping with the fishes
Kaiser
at this point. So I can see people in Russia not being willing to do to Burley's end what he said. You have to have people below you smarter than you say. I can understand you're waged in this publicity war and this propaganda war, but when it gets down to just brass tacks, we're at a serious disadvantage in this war, in this chess game. So weigh your options.
Which is why it was a brilliant move when China came back and said, oh, we're going to match this. This administration went, you know what? We're going to reserve our tariffs just for you. We're going to pause everybody else. Why? Because this is what we were talking about, Burley, when we were talking about the American consumer having a part in this and getting to make a decision and getting to say, I'm not going to buy that product. I'm going to buy this product. Right. The stuff you're going to get out of Italy, the stuff you're going to get out of Spain and England for the most part, and France and other countries, even in South America, importing, you give them a chance to fill the market. And once they fill the market, China's out.
They'll never be able to recover at that point.
So
all they'll be doing is playing catch up. And when you look at the shipping timeframes, at that point, the Merrick and everything else, all the international shippers will have adjusted fire. And China will be 8 months to a year behind everyone else trying to play catch up.
Can you imagine, though, if they actually paused, thought about it, and said, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for a partnership.
They can't.
Wait. And by a partnership, I mean, hang on.
I know.
Let's agree. And I'm talking about China.
I know.
I'm talking about China saying, wait a minute, let's agree. And he may have some pushback on his end that's saying, wait, listen.
But here's why they can't.
Okay, let me hear it.
Because much like so many American companies on the stock exchange, they have become so addicted to the level of profit that they are making on the US that their infrastructure has caught up with it. Their entire business model is set on bending everyone here in this room over and going to town economically, that if all of a sudden we stand up, the entire thing is broken.
Okay.
The entire system is broken if we get fair, if we get a deal.
Okay, so then that may need to happen, but then what will happen after that? Okay, after that, then the quality goes up because then the manufacturing will shift.
Yep.
And I'll give you a real quick example. I bought my son a dirt bike, right? And we have a four-wheeler, and so we're always replacing parts and whatnot. Well, if you try to get an OEM part, it's ridiculously expensive.
Yep.
And ironically enough, they're made in Japan. So they're not made here. And
Right.
I'll leave the two main manufacturers of it, but you can figure it out.
Yeah.
But when you go to get replacement parts, carburetors and whatnot, right? So it's cast parts made from, guess where? Okay. There's a bunch of letters symbols that you can't read from the original company. But it's at a fraction of the cost. But it serves the purpose. Is the quality as good? Probably not. And there's a good chance, but with the avenues that we have to buy them, i.e. eBay, which is guaranteeing now when you buy motor parts especially, eBay and Amazon, dude, the risk is nothing to you. Now, I'm not taking it apart. I'm not taking it away. I see his finger. I'm not taking it away from our local. I want to buy local. I want to buy local. But at the same time, dude, this is a throwaway bike, and he keeps replacing parts.
And therein lies the problem. America right now functions on a throwaway society as opposed to a quality and investment society.
True.
And we want you to invest in a little more implicit bias radio right after this break. Finally, somebody had a good idea on Implicit Bias Radio. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. What are you laughing at, Grant? You're laughing at actually thinking maybe I had a good idea.
This is nothing but good ideas on this show,
Y'all are-
especially in the second hour.
Y'all are killing me with the mic flag over there. It just, anyway.
Glue gun.
Yeah. Well,
That would-
can't quite do that to the
hot glue.
microphone. No,
Hot
you
glue
can't do
would
that to
work.
the microphone. That at the bar is K&B, Grant Galatas of William S. Nake Hall. That is short pour Burley Pearl around, who I promise you has not been short poured tonight.
No,
Just-
I haven't.
Just listen a
I
little bit.
started pouring myself.
Just listen
And
a
I
little
told
bit.
you the second hour is a hell of a lot more fun than the first. Here we are.
And of course, we have the rustic renegade Caleb Morse. So somebody had a good idea. You know, I don't know about y'all, but I remember a few years ago when I walked into a restaurant for the first time. And I got my food, I got my drink, I opened the straw, I put it in the cup, and I put it on the down next to me. I started eating. And then I went to take a drink out of a nasty,
was like
mushy straw.
It was a crappy fruit roll up.
And no, it was paper, and it was, and I
Oh,
realized that whoever thought that a paper straw was a good idea, a cardboard straw was a good idea, needed to be kicked in the groin until they couldn't breathe, and then kicked 5 more times immediately. It was a terrible idea. And I knew it was a bad idea just because it was a disgusting experience. But what really should have convinced me that it was a bad idea to create paper straws was just how easy it was to find something else that you could substitute instead of plastic.
They have the cardboard. They have plant-based. First off, what grown man still uses a straw? That's where I'm stuck.
I don't use a bunch of them, but occasionally if I'm driving, you get it from a drive-through, I'll use the straw.
I'll tell you right now, I use a straw in most restaurants because
Look at the glass.
I've worked in several restaurants. And
at
I
the
know those
glass.
glasses aren't clean. And if you question that aspect, sit at the bar and watch them wash the glasses.
Okay,
I
I'm
went
not
to a
talking
restaurant
about
the other day and I looked at the glass and I was like, oh, that's somebody's lipstick. That's something from Christmas. That's
Dude, I
this.
saw somebody
like,
else. I saw something else on my glass at one time, and I'm like, that's exactly why I'm not
Yeah,
using
yeah,
that glass.
if
I
it's
looked at it and
short
I
and
was like,
curly
you know
and it's
what?
on your glass, you want nothing to do with it, right?
I was like, it's tap water. I'll live. You know, I drank from a hose.
I'm just saying. Anyway, so I come across this pasta straws.
Yeah.
I'm like, pasta is biodegradable.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make pasta to the point where if the water's not boiling,
It won't break down.
Correct.
And you can stab somebody with pasta.
you can. You know what else you could stab somebody with? Sugarcane. They actually make
Yep.
sugarcane straws.
Great for sweet tea.
And the reason that I ring the bell, that is a fantastic idea.
Hey, and
As a grown man, I won't use it,
And
though.
old fashions.
Dude, you see, that's why the second hour is much more fun because otherwise I wouldn't have never laughed at that. But that's pretty freaking funny. I can tell you that right now.
My point is, number one, so for those who don't know, we come to you from the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair. Mr. Lester's the only 5-star restaurant located between New Orleans and Houston. And while we are not in Mr. Lester's when we record this particular show, we will be back at the end of April, beginning of May for those who want to see one of those shows. The restaurant won't be open. It'll be on our socials. But my point is, there's a lot of sugarcane down here in southern Louisiana.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So it's a great idea. I mean, I'm surprised we don't have bamboo straws. I mean, if you want to find a way to grow small bamboo shoots, which are hollow, you could use
midget bamboo. Would you call it that?
You might. You might call it Mexican standoff bamboo. I don't know from the last segment. So who knows? That joke apparently didn't land here.
Some
on Mr.
LSU
Lester's
professors
TSPL.
know.
I get it. I'm trying to think though. I mean, doggone, bamboo grows so fast. Like,
Yeah, see,
like you leave tonight and you come back tomorrow, and then it's too big to use as a straw. So now you've got to manufacture it. Now
Unless
you
you're,
got to
unless
cut
you're
it. Now you got to
Caleb.
clean it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but-
You're going to have an LSU professor tomorrow that sits down and is like, you know what? If I crossbreed this bonsai tree and
Yes.
bamboo, that's the ticket.
The bamboo bonsai straw.
Yeah.
Does that come with Mr. Miyagi? I mean, because that one, yeah.
Wait, I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm in my business today. Wait,
Uh-oh.
I had to. Actually, it was yesterday. I had to explain to a person the wax on, wax off concept.
They've never seen The Karate Kid.
I think she eventually remembered what I was trying to tell her, but she
she
was
was-
talking about swirl marks on a car wash,
Apparently-
and I'm saying, ma'am, you don't understand. It doesn't work that way. The car wash doesn't work in that. I said, hang on, listen to me. Put your hand out in front of you. And she said, okay. And I said, now do the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off. And she said, okay. And I said, does my car wash do this? And she said, no. I said, okay, then it didn't put swirl marks on your car. and so then she started thinking, well, wait, that makes perfect sense. She said, so the guy was telling me that that's a car wash. And I said, no, it's the guy that's waxing your car.
Yeah,
with the orbital waxer that spins just like that. Does that match the signature that you see on your car? She said, yes. I said, so it's him. It's not me.
He reused that same pad 75 times.
Yeah. Anyway, the idea to come up with a better version of a straw, I was like, why didn't we just start there? This is not hard. This is not difficult. It's part of that great marketing plan, though, right, Caleb?
It's a beautiful marketing plan where it's like, you know what? We're going to make you feel bad about tortoises and turtles getting straw stuck in their nose. And then no one stops and says, well, we put most of our trash in a landfill. There are no turtles in a landfill.
Well, there aren't sea turtles in landfills, which is what they were saying.
Yeah. So when marketing works, otherwise it wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar business.
And they are devious a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times. Go back to breakfast, the most important meal of the day. We all grew up with that saying, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what? It's not. It was a marketing plan.
To sell more bacon. More bacon, more breakfast sausage, which is disgusting.
Is that what it was?
Oh, no, breakfast sausage is fantastic.
Is that what it was? It was for bacon.
What the hell's wrong
You
with
stop that. No.
Breakfast
no.
sausage,
Breakfast
especially-
sausage is a waste
Dude,
of
bite
time.
your tongue.
Because
Especially
sausage is sausage, and mine comes in a casing, and it's smoked. Breakfast sausage is not sausage. It's a patty.
No.
That's
Come
not
on,
sausage.
breakfast sausage, especially when it's done by a very particular deer processor and you've got venison and sage
Absolutely.
and all that. That is a fantastic breakfast offering. I don't want to hear it, Caleb. I don't
No,
wanna
you
hear it.
take your sausage, cut it open, you pour whiskey on top when you cook it, a lot of butter, and you slap that on your plate next to your eggs.
God, dude, you're way
Smoked sausage
You're,
is
you're
not for
completely
breakfast.
out of line,
Breakfast
dude.
sausage
I'm
is
not.
for
I'm not
breakfast.
going. I'm not going into my bar stash at breakfast time. I'm trying to hurry up and get something going. And a Jimmy Dean or Owens country
Jimmy D,
sausage.
this big breakfast right
just
there.
that big tube right there. You know anything about? No, you don't know anything
I don't
about
buy-
a big tube.
I don't. Yeah,
You
no.
don't know anything about that.
I don't buy
So
my
those
sausage.
breakfast. Those
Ring the
breakfast.
bell. Ring the bell.
I don't buy my sausage from a tube. Just like I don't drink from a straw. It's too much practice, and I don't need it. Right? So
Yeah, we heard you had a lot of experience with it. Anyway, this is the fun part of Implicit Bias Hour 2, which, by the way, go to our socials. We are giving away bottles of whiskey. You can get them, pick them up at Mr. Lester's. We'll show you how to win. We're doing Easter giveaways. We've got all kinds of fun stuff because we're coming off of Easter with this episode. So trust me, you want to find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X. We're going to be giving stuff away. Mr. Lester's is our partner. We're going to be back down there showing you the beautiful culinary delights that they deliver. Walker, how much time do we have left in this segment?
2 or 3 minutes.
Guess what? We're rolling that over because the next segment is the last segment of this week's show.
before you do that,
Wait, let Walker do his job.
before you do that, go to our socials, give us a review. Right?
Oh,
That's
we'd love
how
to
you
have
enter.
reviews on Facebook. So when you go to Facebook,
Good reviews
go to
would
the,
be great.
Go to the tab that says review and write a review. You never know when it's going to enhance your chance of winning. And oh, by the way, upcoming giveaway, you might want to be one of our top contributors and our top fans. I'm just saying, top fans are about to win something that's really special at Mr. Lester's. We are going to come back. We're going to talk about getting Gaddafi'd, apparently, on this week's episode of Implicit Bias when we wrap things up right after this. Final segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias, where we are not equal. You're not equal to me. I'm not equal to you, and it's okay. But the U.S. might be trying to make some plans to at least get our currency on equal footing with everybody else. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Why? Because there is a resolution where maybe, just maybe, they're showing us the plan. Let me introduce you to the crew who's here with us this week for this last segment. The bar is a mess. And I don't mean the actual bar. I mean the people sitting behind it. Yeah, Burley Short Pour Pellerin is with us this week. Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers.
House right
He
here.
is,
Jimmy, you're leaving me hanging here. There you go.
yeah, those
Hey, it's good to have Burley back. I love this raucous atmosphere behind the
Yeah,
bar.
that is.
I had the bar by myself like 2 weeks ago. Remember
You
that?
did. Yeah, you did. You liked it by yourself. Like you wanted to lay across the bar
Well,
at
that's a
some
damn
point.
shame. I should have been here 2 weeks ago.
Well, we didn't know that was going to happen.
Now that I
Burley.
think of it, I liked it by myself.
That's what I thought.
You have to go.
All right. In the chair like mine,
What a
he is the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse. We have gone through Cajun's Cut this week for our weekly whiskeys. We've got a definite green. We've got 4 Gate whiskeys on the bar, including the Jack Daniel's Sinatra and Buffalo Trace. We're going to be giving those away on our socials. But the last problem of the world that maybe needs to be solved is this. And it's tons of fun. It's getting Gaddafi'd. Caleb, so
Whenever you brought up this topic, I assumed, and look, maybe it's my military nature, right? I assumed that everyone knew what getting Gaddafi meant.
no, did not know.
I just, it came as second nature to me that people understand what this means and understand what it symbolizes. So when I had to explain it, it was an educational experience. And the best way to do it is just Google it.
So let me say this. When I looked and thought about getting Gaddafi, I was referencing the Tucker Carlson interview with a former U.S. lawmaker who went on his show and said, I carried resignation letters from Gaddafi to the U.S., but there were some things he wanted for him to step down.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 big things he wanted the entire African continent united as the United States is, and he wanted all of them on a gold standard. Now, for those who don't know what a gold standard is, the U.S. currency used to be backed by precious metals.
Up until 1916, was it?
1917.
Maybe 1917.
That 1912, 1913, 1917.
Just off whatever
we
island
came
it
off
was.
of the international gold standard.
Yep.
It was completed under Nixon in the 60s.
Yep. Jekyll Island, sorry.
But up until that time, the reason they called it 4 quarters of a dollar and they were made of silver was because literally it was a quarter's worth of $1 of silver. Right?
up until 1964.
Well, that's when they
Then
were
a
making a lot
quarter
of
was
silver.
actually still made of silver.
still made of silver,
Technically,
but
it's
we were-
presentable. Well, hang on. The silver content was worth the silver content.
Correct.
The $quarter was still
Correct.
the $quarter
And that's,
dollar.
and that's the difference.
However, there is paper money that was silver certificates
Correct. Which was different from what
from
we
a
have
U.S.
today.
Treasury note, which is what it says today, or
Correct.
actually
Federal-
it says
it's not a
Federal
Treasury
Reserve
note.
note.
Yes, it's a
there
Federal
was a
Reserve
Treasury note. There's also a Federal Reserve note.
We're going to get to this, Burley. Just
Okay.
give me
All
some
right.
time.
I'm jumping ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you are. So, we institute the Fed. The Fed stops issuing money essentially tokenized to the value of precious metal. And they say a dollar's worth a dollar because the U.S. government backs it and says it is. Not because we have a dollar's worth of silver in the U.S. Treasury and this represents that dollar's worth of silver. Well, when that happened, for those who don't know, Jekyll Island, the reason we have a Federal Reserve Bank, I want you to think about this. You go back to when we had a U.S. silver dollar, and when that silver dollar was $1 worth of silver. Today, that very same silver dollar monetarily is worth $1. Weighed in silver, as of right now, it's worth $32.47. That was before we came in to record this show. The ounce price of gold was over $3,300 at the beginning of the recording of this show. So what can't happen if you have a gold or precious metal backed currency? You can't have depreciation of the currency,
Nope, because there is physical, tangible money or weight to back it.
which means inflation is almost impossible.
So wasn't there a recent story about whether or not President Trump?
So
Am I
so
stealing
hold on.
your
No,
thunder?
so hold
Hang
on. So
on.
here,
I'm sorry.
So no, we're almost there.
This is why, folks. This is essentially live. We haven't talked about any of this.
So this is why we're going down this road. Because number one, Muammar Gaddafi said, I want us to be on a gold standard. What happened to Muammar Gaddafi? How did
got
he get Gaddafi?
Gaddafi.
He got killed. They would not accept his resignation and give those concessions because they refuse to let those things happen. And they killed him by putting a sword in an orifice in the body where nothing is supposed to go in, stuff's only supposed to come out. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. And you look at the last American president who wanted to go back to the gold standard.
Pew pew to the head.
Exactly.
JFK.
Because the people who control the money, if you think the Federal Reserve is a legitimate federal entity, you are mistaken.
The Federal Reserve is a private bank. Let's be honest.
What's the
Not
most
controlled by the government.
Well,
I'm probably
today-
stepping on toes.
today it aligns to the Treasury. It didn't until
Yep.
the first presidential term of Donald J. Trump. He aligned the Fed underneath and make them answer to the Treasury.
Fair.
So now we have this HR 2435 that has been presented in the House of Representatives, thus HR
Yep.
of the United States 2035, to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold and for other purposes.
Man, that's awesome.
What's the date on that?
That date came out and
Recent, right?
yeah, it's very recent.
Like 2 or 3 days.
House 3, well, so it actually was the last action on it was 3/30/2023.
Okay.
Ooh.
So it's sitting out there.
Okay.
Ooh.
Awaiting movement right now
Correct.
It's stuck in
with
committee.
with the right
So the question is, why would it sit there and why would the last action be taken? Because if a bill is proposed or a House resolution is proposed, it can just sit there, they can table it and do nothing with it. It's one of the best ways they use to kill laws that might
kill a
help
bill.
people.
Yeah.
Is not to actually try and put it to a vote and make it go down. They don't let a vote on it happen at all. They just essentially table it. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here, but it makes sense. And Trump has said, I want us to go back to a precious metal-backed gold standard.
He went so far as to say he actually wanted to visit Fort Knox.
to see how much gold is in
He
it.
wants to see how much is there. Now, at $3,300, it's the highest it's ever been. Is it correct?
Yes.
You know, and Lewis would know.
It'll always be the highest it's ever been, though, because it's going to continue to rise.
Okay. So
Up until 5 years ago, it had not got above $2,000 an ounce. As of today, it was $3,300 an ounce.
Gold
Steadily climbing.
right now, overnight markets, when we were recording this show, today is what, April 16th? As we are recording this show. The price of gold is at $3,353.50 an ounce. I know someone who 18 months ago bought $6,000 worth of gold. It is now worth over $10,000 if he were to go cash it in today.
Right.
In 18 months, he returned 80% on his money.
So does he have the physical gold?
Yes.
He physically
He
gets
physically
it.
bought.
It's through one of the brokers, one of the
He went to Coin and Treasure where you go to buy gold.
okay.
And if you buy $20 gold coins, that's an ounce, that's 1 troy ounce of gold. And you get to keep it and store it. And he's sitting on it and he's making money on it.
Okay, there are coin holders that hold 25 coins in
Yes.
each. And I know someone who came in with 50 1-ounce gold coins, 225 stacks, when they bought gold at $600 an ounce. And they came in, cashed out at $2,000 an ounce. And now it's at $3,300 an ounce. So they played it smart. They played it very well, but they played it way too short.
Well, that's
Yep.
the thing is, you know,
Because no one, look, up until like 7 or 8 years ago, it hadn't gotten over 2,000. And now it's sitting at 33.
And some people are
So-
predicting
so, yeah.
it could go to 10.
well, and
Exactly.
that's what they're hoping is it goes to 10, because at 10, if we go to a federal gold standard at $10,000,
An ounce,
guess what happens to our debt and everything else?
depending upon the amount of gold that we have, which is why they're talking
Yeah,
about
That's
wanting to
why
audit.
Trump says he physically wants to visit Fort
Now,
Knox.
they have been sending a lot of gold from every nation across the world. They've been sending a lot of our gold to where?
No, actually, gold has been coming into the U.S.
Well, they sent a lot of it overseas, and now we're starting to ask for a recall.
Well, it's all been coming back because as Lewis told us a
Yep.
couple weeks ago, if you go to Switzerland and say, I need X amount, they don't have it. There's a backlog. They just don't have it. Why? Because, and again, go look at this. You hear, and I'm going to say these are rumors because I'm yet to be able to verify, but the rumors is that pallets of gold are constantly on planes coming over from Europe right now. Like someone's trying to bring enough gold back because they might have stolen it and they're trying to replace it. Oh, Walker, we're having too much fun. We are in the midst of a great episode of Implicit Bias, but unfortunately that finger tells me that we are at the end.
Is going back to Africa real quick, do they have gold?
Oh, they have a ton of gold. It's all over the ground. It's in the ground.
Literally tons of gold.
We have tons of Implicit Bias.
And diamonds.
We want you to stick with us. Go find us on our socials. Subscribe, like, win a bottle of whiskey. Come back for more Implicit Bias Radio next week. We'll see you in 7.